Greetings, Dr. Dominique Reese here, and I'm excited to get started with today's session, our live Q&A. We're going to focus on those 3 must-have goals to starting your financial coaching practice. And this part is really important because we're building our practices based on our lifestyle. And I think that's really important because I knew as I began this journey that I didn't want to create just another limiting job, right? Running a business is full-time work. It really is. But the piece that no one ever really tells you is that you can pace this journey, and what the journey looks like is dependent upon you and how you build it. There are some things about the journey that are just inevitable, that you will have to do them and you'll make your own mistakes. You'll come into your own learning and your own understanding. And what you'll learn today will help frame that journey. It'll help create your whys. And we all know how important the whys are, especially at this point. But we're going to define those whys a bit more by setting goals, by thinking about what it is that we want to accomplish in our practice. So let's do a quick recap about where we were last week and what we covered. And if there are any questions, of course, feel free to leave them in the comments section, hop in the WhatsApp, or simply shoot me an email, okay? So last week we covered 3 reasons why you won't start your coaching practice, okay? Fear, lack of community, lack of support, lack of action. And so we start there because I want it to be obvious what the most obvious barriers are. And that's why you're here, because now you have support, you have community, you know how, or at least have a system by which you can dissect your fears, which will continue to come up throughout the entire journey. So I'm really excited that that's where we started. So now you can come into the journey much more confident and dispelling and dissecting the things that could possibly keep you back. So with that, let's hop into what we're going to do this week and what we're focusing on. And again, they're goals, all about goal setting. Where do you want to be? What does this look like? How do you want to operate in your practice? How do you want to show up in the world? What do you want to represent? And how do you want to do it? So let's dive into the curriculum. I'm going to share my screen so you can see where we are. And here we go. We're going to talk about personal goals, personal, professional, and profit goals, okay? So personal goals are truly going to be those goals that are personal. No one has to understand this. It doesn't have to make sense to anyone else. This is where you truly get to think about your future. And from a personal perspective, because again, we're going to talk professional and we're going to talk profit, but what are those things that are just so super important to you to maintain? I'll give you an example. This is somewhat of a personal and professional goal that I set. Personal because it just started there. Professional because it has some implications to my professional life. So for me personally, I knew that I didn't want to work on Mondays, at least in the sense of talking to clients, taking meetings. I don't like Mondays. Things happen on Mondays, You party too hard over the weekend, you're not ready for work on Monday. You're not ready to talk to someone. You're not ready to even be social. So I chose not to work on Mondays. On Mondays, I don't schedule any client calls. I don't schedule any meetings. I leave that day open for me to actually do work and get work done and kind of catch my bearings. Um, and I love it because now I know I won't double book. I won't forget. Um, and that's what happened. So that goal was driven by my actions and my inability to do the traditional Monday things on Mondays. So I said, listen, I don't want to take this into my business. Working a job, Mondays are just not it for me. So once I decided to go full time, I did not work Mondays. And yes, the rest of the world is working, but I'm not building my practice for the rest of the world. Okay. And if that day is important, then make it work for you. But that was important to me. The other thing was that I was building a practice that fit my personal life and my lifestyle. I'm a single parent with the village. And so while I have that support from the village, I still wanted to be able to make myself available to my son and his activities and being there for school when I could and when I wanted to. And so entrepreneurship allows me to do that because I own my time. I get to say how I spend my time. And yes, of course, that impacts my money directly. So I have to set it up in a way where I still own my time and I still get my work done, right? So that was another important thing for me. At the time, another important personal goal was that I take on a job that allows me to keep my business. I had done that before where I took on a job and I couldn't keep the business. They wouldn't approve it as an OBA, an outside business activity. So I let the business go. And then once I got back to the business, I had to start it up all over again. It was like starting from scratch. And I just made a vow to myself that I wouldn't do that. Any 9 to 5 gigs that I take on, temporary or full time, would have to account for my business. So another personal goal or standard that I set. And that's what you have to do. You have to start thinking about how you want to set this up. And then, of course, as you implement, as you get into it, you'll decide if it's feasible or not, if it's sustainable or not, if it's something that actually works right now in the beginning phases. It may not, but you'll know that and you'll know how to adjust it accordingly. And again, it doesn't matter that anyone else understands this, and it doesn't matter that it makes sense to anyone else. Okay. So let's be very clear about that. A lot of what you're doing for you. You're not doing it for someone else. And you're not doing it the way someone else did it, right? And as you'll see, being a part of my email list, I like to send you articles and websites of other financial coaches, of other practices that are up and running right now. So you can begin to see the flavors. You can begin to see the very many different ways that people are showing up. And you may take a little bit from here, a little bit from there, because these are existing models that seemingly are working. But begin to create that for yourself. What's important to you in your personal life that's going to impact how you do business? And set that goal so that you're building your practice to support your personal goals. Okay. So let's talk a little bit about professional goals. Your professional goals are going to be important because you're probably not going to be where you are today in the next 12 months professionally, right? You're going to work with more clients. You're going to attend some events and trainings. You may transition jobs or into entrepreneurship. You may take on another designation. You may get laid off. There are so many opportunities, right? But where do you want to be professionally? You may go back to school. What are the professional goals? This is where we truly start to do visualization. Where do you see yourself? How do you see yourself showing up professionally? And then when you think about your your profession and your career, what does that mean for your practice? What does that mean for the business you intend to run? I know in the beginning of my journey, I wasn't very keen on designations because I had an old school mentor who was a financial advisor. He was high ranking at the firm, and he didn't care too much for designations because he thought they were just money traps for us professionals. He felt like, one, clients don't care. Two, they just make you pay all this money to stay current every year. They don't really deliver any value, at least none that you can't create on your own. They were like little social groups, not professional. He had a whole opinion about them. And then I adopted that opinion, right? Because he was my mentor. So my tutelage was from his style. And so professionally, I didn't pay too much attention to the designations early on in my career. And rightfully so, he was right. No one asked me about them. No one cared if I had them or didn't. What mattered to people was their experience with me and my professionalism and my competency, how I represented myself. And so professionally, as I begin to transition and you begin to work with clients and you start to understand your prospecting method and how you get clients and what people care about when they meet you, it becomes apparent that every client is different and every client doesn't care about the same things. And then when you start working with institutional clients, designations are distinguishing, but they don't determine the outcome of closing the deal. So professionally, think about what you want to accomplish. Do you want to become have a published article in publications, or become a speaker, or, publish a book? What do you want to create within your lane, your professional lane? And then how do you want that to show up in your business? What kind of income do you want to create for yourself? What kinds of clients do you want to work with? What are your goals around your clients and the business and your income? How many events do you want to attend this year and why? What are you looking to get out of professional development this year? I mean, these are the kinds of questions you want to ask when you're being intentional about what you're building. And it's not easy because you're forced to go to a place you've never been. You're forced to go to a place where you've got to think about the outcomes you're creating, not just willy-nilly going along. Oh, I'm going to do this because it was marketed to me. Oh, that's coming up. I think I might do it. Well, does that align with your vision? Does that align with why you're doing, what you're doing, why you're showing up in your practice? And so as we talk about vision and mission, it's going to become important that all of these things are aligned and supported. That all these things are aligned and supported. And so I'm looking forward to hearing what you come up with. I'm looking forward to you sharing what's going to make the difference for you. And in the professional section that you'll see here, there's this worksheet that's out there in our world. And here's where it's adapted from, breakthroughptmarketing.com. And this was shared with me, I want to say, in one of my Sage Financial Solutions trainings. And it's a great worksheet. It really helps to get the juices going. It's provocative. And it comes in this particular worksheet breaks it down into 3 sections. So there's questions like, how many hours are you coaching in your perfect practice? Will this give you enough time to invest with your family? So again, personal goals. How big is your practice? How do you deliver your services? What do you specialize in? How much money are you making? Are you consistently attracting your ideal client? Who is your ideal client? Do you know how to control your marketing plan? Scheduled vacations, that hit me this year. I scheduled vacation. I took vacation for the first time in several years, and it was very difficult. As entrepreneurs, you get caught in that cog of just working, working, working. I got to get work done. I got to get work done. And when it's time to not work, that's a new training. I had to train myself to not work for 14 days, and I only did it for 7. It took 7 days for me to get out of working. And by the time I got into not working, I'm like, oh, this is really cool. This is great. But then the 7 days were over. So I figured this year I will get much better at planning and being in my vacation. But that is extremely important. And this starts to help you understand the amount of hours available to you in your practice. And there's going to be an exercise that you do in the next section that will help you calculate the hours available to you in your practice. Once you know the hours available to you, then you can start to determine how often you're going to work, what you're going to charge, because the numbers tell a story and they never lie, right? Just like with our clients. So when we understand, all right, I'm not working weekends, I work weekends. In my practice, I work weekends because a lot of the people I work with, my ideal client, are available on weekends. They're typically 9 to 5 professionals who don't have time during the week, or who don't have the energy to give me the energy I need from them. So I'd rather work with them on a Saturday. So, you see how it's how you build it. While I don't want to work on Mondays, I'm willing to work on a Saturday morning at 8 o'clock, right? So this is where the rubber meets the road. This is where you really start to envision, what do you see yourself doing? You're sitting at your desk, you're talking on the phone. Who are you talking to? What do they sound like? Are they panicked? Are they relaxed? Are they in crisis? Who are you working with? And how are you working with them? And when do you work with them? And how much do you charge them to work with you? This is where you get to get creative, okay? So use this worksheet to help guide you. Use this to help generate your thoughts about what it is you're building. And I love the comments coming in, so please continue to share. I will be responding in the comments section. And again, that's where you can put your questions, okay? So let's get to the profit piece. Time to talk money. And again, this is where the rubber meets the road. This is where you get to see what the numbers are telling you. So in this exercise, I help you calculate the number of hours in a year. So you'll do that. 365 times 24 is going to give you a number. And then if you choose to work weekends or not, take the weekends out. That's 2 days a week. That's 4 weeks. That's 8 days a month out of 12 months. So you've got to figure out how many hours are attributable to the weekend, and then subtract those out from the first number you got. Then will you work holidays? If so, subtract those hours out. So at this point, you're whittling down, right? You're going from how many hours are available to me in an entire year to, if I'm not working weekends, if I'm not working holidays, if I'm going to take vacation, if I'm going to account for sick days, what's left after all of that? And so you'll have a formula, and that formula is going to give you your workable hours per year. This is the exciting part. And so I did some research, and studies out there show that as consultants, we spend about 60% of our time directly working with clients. Okay. So we take 60% of those workable hours, and now we've got billable hours. These are the hours that we can actually charge clients to work directly with them. And then you take that number and you get an hourly rate from that. Now, are we working to charge an hourly rate? No. As entrepreneurs, we do not work by the hour. We work by value. Okay? We deliver value to our client. If a client works with me and I help them figure out a strategy to reduce debt, and then they implement that strategy and they reduce their debt by $2,000, I should get a portion of that. I should get a fee attributed to a portion of that $2,000. So let's say it's 50%. Well, I charge $1,000 because I know that that $1,000 is a value. It's a piece of what you're gonna do. Same way of saving. If I create a saving strategy, client implements it, they save $10,000 because of my strategy, I should get a little piece of that. Give me $1,000 for helping you get 10. That's value. You work with me, it produces something outside of what we're doing. There's more value coming back to that person. And so the profit goals are going to help you understand your value. Even though we're getting an hourly rate, we are not working by the hour. We leave that in the 9 to 5 model. As entrepreneurs, we work for value because we know that the work you do, I do, as individual practitioners, no one else can do it. No one else can show up the way I can show up. No one else can attract the clients that I attract the way I do. No one else can give them the solutions that they need the way I can. And so there is a premium for that when you work with me. And my hourly rate helps me to understand how much I should be charging to make a living from what I do. Not just getting by. Again, that's the 9 to 5 model. Here, we're creating freedom on multiple fronts, right? We talked about that. Time freedom, thought freedom, financial freedom. So what numbers are going to help us get there? And those numbers might be scary initially. It might create some shock because you're like, how am I going to charge that? Who's going to pay that? All of those things that come up as entrepreneurs, the fear, the doubt, the uncertainty, the self-doubt. This is where we get to face those numbers head on because the numbers tell a story and they never lie. You've got a formula. You can calculate what your pricing should be and then fill it out. I am still testing my pricing. I've created my profit goals. I've said the numbers I wanted to hit, and then I'll calculate it and I'm like, oh my gosh, who's going to pay that? And then I have to remember there's 7 billion people in the world, Dominique. You have a market. You just have to find them. And they're willing to pay you. You just have to show up. They don't know who you are. And if they don't know who you are, they can't pay you. So that goes back to marketing. We have to spend more time marketing what we do than creating it. So set these profit goals. Think about how much you want to make every month. And this is starting out. You might have a target goal, target income goal, which you should and will. And you might work up to that. You might say, listen, I'm just not comfortable saying that number yet. And I want to be confident when I'm selling, right? Because the client can hear that through the phone. And you pick a place that's comfortable for you. And from there, you go. You test it. You let the market tell you what it's willing to do. Okay? So let's see. Just going to stop the share for a second. Make sure that the technology is working properly. And all right. So whatever questions that you might have about that, again, feel free to use the chat, use the comment section, the WhatsApp, and let me know what's coming up for you. If you haven't already, please join the WhatsApp. I'll be sure to put that link in the course, in the training module, so that it's more prominent, and I'll be in touch. Let's see. Let's go back to the training portal just to be sure covered everything. Yeah. You've got some resources here, again, that will help you. And I'd like for you to share your numbers, Yeah, share your numbers. I'm looking forward to responding. I see we have some comments there. Calculation looks about right. Looking into how to factor time I spent on personal development, finance trainings. Yeah, you definitely want to account for time spent doing professional development. And this is why those goals go hand in hand. None of this is busy work. I promise you, I will never give you busy work. I'm giving you intentional work to help you think about your practice from the most realistic perspective, from the timing, right? It's only 24 hours in a day. And if you let me, I'll spend all 24 just working on my business, right? I ain't even in the business yet. I'm talking about working on the business. I mean, it's serious. I've got paperwork right now. I take notes. I'm old school. So January 5th, right? We're talking segmenting my list. We're talking who gets what. I mean, it's an effort. It's an effort. Weekly emails. What am I going to be sending? How am I spending my time? And this is the automated piece. You'll get to that. You'll get to the systems that you can use to help push your goals and help automate and duplicate your efforts. But in the beginning, you just got to sit with it. You got to sit and understand it's 24 hours in a day, 7 days a week. How often do I want to be working in this practice? How often do I need to work in order to get things ramped up? And then what does that mean in money? How does that translate to my income goals? That event is coming up. It's a week long. Am I going to take off from work? Am I going to work and take clients and attend the events? Like, I've learned all these things over the years, what not to do. You want to go to a conference and you're still taking client calls. It's not the best strategy. Gonna be all over the place. I did it this past year. Try to take client calls while attending the conference, and it was virtual. So it's like, you always think you're gonna have time because it's virtual, but you don't. And when you really want to be somewhere and be attentive and be present, it's like, oh, I gotta hop off because I have a call coming up. It's not the best experience. So you definitely want to factor in personal development. You've got to. And again, that's gonna impact your workable hours. So you do need time for professional development. And then you subtract that out based upon how much time you're going to give it throughout the year. Also, what expenses are needed to be considered in order to run your business? The pandemic is providing a lot of gems when it comes to sustaining a business during a disaster, right? Considering questions around, can my business be sustained during a pandemic, for an example? This is great. These are great questions to consider. You want to think about this from an opportunity standpoint, not from a limitations standpoint. So yes, we're in a pandemic, and yes, we may not be able to do in-person work. However, if you want to do in-person work, that's a different type of practice. If we're doing virtual only, that's a different type of practice. And just for that alone, two expenses that come up, right? If we're doing in-person work, where are we meeting clients? And wherever that is, do you need to pay for it? Gone are the days where we can meet someone in a coffee shop, right? And even then, because it's money, we want to create some privacy. So do you now get an office space that you can rent, or a co-working space that you can pop in and out and meet with clients? Well, again, gone are those days right now because of social distancing. So we're really left with a virtual platform, a virtual model. So what does that mean? Paying for things like Zoom, right? I pay for my Zoom, but I could probably be using Google Hangouts or meetings, and then some of the other free services that are available. So think about what's required for you to operate in your 9 to 5, especially if your 9 to 5 is very similar to the practice you want to run, think about all of the resources, equipment that is required for you to operate in your 9 to 5. So we're talking laptop, desktop, phone, email account, right? Any security systems or softwares. I have a ton. And I believe in the budget that I put there, you'll be able to, in the copy of my budget, you'll be able to see some of those expenses. So use this for sure. Let's just click on it and see, to help you decide. To help you decide. Yeah. So let's stop the share so that I can show you a bit better. All right, so here are some of those expenses. Email, website hosting. I have to pay every month for my website to be hosted. Rent, when I was paying it, I had a co-working space, a fax or conference line, digital faxes. Internet, got to buy the internet every month, right? Home office, photographer, when I take photos or have events, coaching service or product, when I invest in my business through another coach, training. So attending webinars, attending professional development trainings, editors for my books, videographers, FedEx, got to send things or I need to print things. Well, I have a printer, but for whatever FedEx related, post office, because I have a book, I send that book out. You know, people, I have so many books at home, people purchase, I sign it, I take it to the post office. So I have shipping costs, business filings every year. I have to renew some kind of business something. When I need a lawyer, when I have an assistant who I pay. PayPal, every time I get paid through PayPal, they take a little bit of it. So I get to write those off, but those are expenses. The cost of doing business with PayPal. Books and development, subscription memberships, equipment and electronics. I have a camera, I have a tripod, I have lapels, I have a green screen, office furniture, equipment, client gifts, business clothes. Yes, I have a branded business uniform, right? When I'm driving or traveling, food and dining. So, print, graphic designs. These are just some of the expenses I have. So this budget will definitely help generate your thoughts around the expenses that you'll need for your practice. And some of these expenses you won't need right away. Some of them will come as you develop your business, as you build it out. Others are inevitable. You'll need them from the beginning. And I'm actually developing a business systems kit. So stay tuned for that, because you'll have an opportunity to take a look at some of the providers that I use, and when to use them, because there's so many, right? There's so many providers for the same services. It's like, how do you know which is the best and when? And believe me, I've spent a lot of money trying to figure out the best way to use a service or take advantage of a service. And sometimes it wasn't always the best thing for me. I should have waited. My business didn't need it yet. So I was paying for things that I wasn't leveraging, or I was on like the most expensive plan when really I only needed the basic. So I don't want you to make those mistakes because then you'll be spending money that you don't have to spend. So the profit section is full of a lot, right? It's going to give you that formula. You're going to work it out according to your vision, and then think about those expenses as they come up for you. And then week 2, I will post the recording here once it's complete. So you'll have that. Let's see. So now I'm going to go back to some of last week's curriculum and just check out the questions there, or what was coming up in the chat. Let's see. This is when we were talking about fear. Fear is one of those things that shows up in many different ways. And so I'm glad that this exercise was valuable, and that you found it to be a good tool, because it's something that we have to dissect quite often, in entrepreneurship. Um, Fear has a way of creating procrastination, um, and then we're not getting to our business. So let's see what we've got here. Very reliant on my personality. Okay. So these are great. I'm going to continue to look at the comments and respond directly in the portal so everyone can see, but feel free to continue to post your questions as you're going through the curriculum. And yes, let me show you this really quickly. This is where you'll have an opportunity to schedule your complimentary private coaching session. So be sure to take advantage of that. That's in the support. And then I'm also going to put here the weekly Q&A. I'm going to go ahead and add the section about the WhatsApp. So I'll add that in there. All right. So let's stop the share. Of course, I'm looking forward to your questions, and I'm looking forward to you completing this section. I know I am here right now as I'm going through the training as well. It's the first of the year, and I've got to get these goals written down for this year. I'm still reviewing my goals from last year and what I was able to accomplish, what I didn't accomplish, and why. So I think this is a good time for all of us to delve into this section of the curriculum, of the training, because it's going to help you get really clear about how you show up. And as you'll see, they're just numbers, so we can manipulate them. We can decide, I know I've done this and I've learned last year because I implemented. The last part of the year is always very busy and crazy. Holidays, my family has a lot of birthdays in the month of September. Like half our family has birthdays in that month. And then just with the holidays, it's a lot. My birthday is around Thanksgiving every year. It's the 29th of November. So there's just times when I'm either already on break, my son is out of school, and working can conflict with that. It makes it a bit more stressful during those times because he's out, I'm on. So this year I was able to align that. I was able to create goals within my business that aligned with my personal goals and what was actually happening in my life, and they supported my lifestyle. So my business supports the lifestyle I want to lead. It helps me to spend time with family while also getting my work done and meeting my goals. So this year I'm going to get a little bit more refined now that I see how it happened, how it actually unfolded last year. So some things to tweak, others I got to get more stringent about. But this is the time to start thinking about that and to build it into our practices. And they're all related: personal, professional, profit. They all go hand in hand, especially once we start to implement, once we start to execute. So take this section so very seriously and be thoughtful, be intentional. And if you get stuck, you need some support, reach out to me. All right. Thank you for your attention today. I'm looking forward to supporting you. You have a great day.